It's Wednesday, which means it's hump day, which means it's the first day of the rest of your life, which means it's Wake Up Wednesday. And we're going to be bringing on a co host with the most, Daniel Tuttle, to talk about how to face indecision, how to deal with indecision and transform it into powerful choice.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Brooksy.
Good
Uh,
morning, Brooksy.
Good morning, Daniel. How are you today?
I am so great today, Ben. How are
Ooh,
you?
so great. Wow. I've been flying high this week too. It seems like maybe we had a little
I
turnaround.
know. I know. How did we get so lucky, huh?
I think we asked for it
We did ask for it. We did.
and we received, and we surfed the waves of insanity and chaos over the last couple weeks, all
Yeah.
to culminate here. So I'm really in like harvest mode, and I'm super excited, and things are kind of flying, and more ease is coming. I get the sense
Yeah.
that's going over there with you too.
It's totally what's going on over here. Lots of amazing, amazing, amazing shifts. A lot of things that if you would have told me 3 months ago would be happening, I would be like, what? No way. No way. That's
Mm,
crazy. And I love when that happens, right?
mm,
It's this time too, because of all of this movement of energy, especially like with the full moon that came in on Sunday, the full moon in Aries, it's like, all of the opportunity is here and it's available for us. And we just have to look at what it really means to be bold, be
mm.
bold with our
Yes.
choices. Libra is a time when people find that it's hard to make a decision. And I think that's what we're here to talk about today, right, Ben?
It totally is. And for those of you who don't know what he means by Libra is a time, so the full moon is in Libra now. Yes.
No, full moon is in Aries, but
The
the
full
sun
moon
is
is
in
in
Libra.
Aries.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is a powerful time where we can and I so many of us I was paralyzed by indecision, and I heard you talk about this yesterday, which is why I really wanted to bring it in to
Uh-huh.
the podcast and to our community today. And good morning, Owen from Every Man. It's really awesome
And Miss
to see
Tess
you
Malone.
here.
Hello,
And Miss
gorgeous.
Tess. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. You are as much a part of this conversation just by your energy and being here. And if you have any questions along the way this morning, please comment and ask us.
Yeah,
If you're listening later on our podcast, shoot us a message.
that's right.
So I used to be paralyzed by indecision. And I
Really?
even remember, oh yeah, it would take me like an hour, 2 hours to get out the door because I would change clothes so many times. I remember especially when I moved to New York and I was into fashion and outfits, but I had all this opportunity in my hands. Like there's always something to do in New York. And I became the
Always.
yes man. I was a yes to everything. But it
Yes.
really had me start to not show up fully for anything. And
Agreed.
there used to be so many things I would get moving and cooking that I couldn't possibly choose one of them. And I felt like I was having to choose between people. So I just tried to go see all of them in a night. And it really didn't work. It was a lot of people pleasing. It was a lot of
Yeah.
scrambling. And then I remember I got sober and I was like, oh, it was probably because I drank so much and smoked so much pot, blah, blah, blah. Well, when I got sober, it got worse. And so I just got
Really?
more into my brain. I would try to choose which meeting I was going to go to, and I would pace back and forth between my apartment and call people, and like so much so that I would be late to the meeting. It was like this self-sabotorial behavior that if I had to choose between two things, I would just go back and forth until I literally started to kind of go insane and just self-sabotage it all. And choosing became so scary to me. And I think it's because I felt like I would, maybe kill off the other possibilities. I want
Sure.
to mention also decide versus choice. And to
Hmm.
decide is literally to kill off possibilities. So choosing something can be powerful. And it doesn't even mean you have to take the actions. It's just the willingness, right, to start to choose
Correct.
that thing and to see what else shows up.
And also, I
So,
think
what are you
what you
hearing
said,
from this?
what you said is so beautiful, Ben, because, it's really that what I perceive is that your inability to choose then was really rooted in wanting to be perfect. wanting it to be, wanting to make sure that you were doing it right, right? That, oh my God, if I do it this way, I do it this way, and it becomes so paralyzing. It's the paralyzation of perfection, right? That we don't make a choice. It's that space where we go, well, um, I want this, but if I choose this, I might lose that. And if I don't have that, then what if that was really the right choice? And if that was really the right choice, then I've really kind of screwed myself over and I'm screwed. But the truth
Yeah, I
is
think it was
that
less perfection and more right. Like, where is
more
the
right.
right place to go? Especially when I didn't feel safe, or when I had two
Mhm.
groups of people to hang out with, or two different people were expecting me.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the right thing to do was. And I think the truth is also I didn't know what I wanted or who I was. I didn't even know how to love myself back then. So I think a lot of it was seeking validation from all these people and
Approval.
places and things. And if I didn't get it right, it would be too painful.
Sure. And there's also the fear of letting other people down, right? Like, and then what are you going to do? And then what door are you going to close? And what foot are you going to step on that might be connected to the ass that's going to get you where you need to go tomorrow? You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And I think the most important thing about choice and choosing is recognizing that there's always a choice, right? So
Hmm.
even though you make a choice and it doesn't feel like a choice that is moving you in the direction that you want to go, you can always make another choice. Oftentimes we get so paralyzed with choosing because we think that that's the be all and the end all. It's
Hmm.
like, you know, I will never forget actually on my wedding day, my mother said to me, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because we don't do divorce in our family." And I remember,
No pressure.
I swear to God, I
Oh
remember
my
being
God.
like,
Thanks, Mom.
whoa. And then I
That's
I
so
took
sweet.
I had to take a second and recognize that that was her belief and that was her point of view and that was everything that was going on in her world and that she had
Hmm.
been raised with or whatever. And there was look to know my mom is to know that there's a part of that she was joking, right? Like there's a lightness of it. It sounded intense in the moment, but there is a lightness of it. And especially now looking back on all of it. But I remember being like, that was one of the reasons why it took me so long to get married was because I was like, I don't know, I don't
Hmm.
know, I don't know, I don't know. And I did get divorced. And it was also the greatest decision of my life was to get married and to get divorced. So who
Hmm.
cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's knowing that you always have a choice. You
Yeah.
always have a choice.
Yes. And I love that you said that too, Daniel, because I think about, especially, I think people around our generation or older will really understand this. The amount of parents who stayed together for the sake of the children
Hmm.
in our generations and our parents' generations. And I used to yell at my parents, like, will you guys please get a divorce? Like, this is horrible. Being in,
Yeah,
like, I
totally.
don't care. Like, just stop. And I would beg them to. And then they
Yeah,
finally did. And I thought my world was going to fall apart. The truth is, my parents showed up for me 100% more because they stopped having to deal with each other's the toxicity there, and they got to be there for me, and then they got to discover themselves, and they were in
sure.
their 50s, or like, yeah, I think they were in their 50s. Neither of them remarried, but they became so much happier
Hmm.
and so much closer with their kids, and I think it became one of those things that really had them both grow.
Yeah.
And so even when we're choosing relationships or marriage or this thing, like, hey, I said for life, but if you're not bringing each other joy,
Right.
then why are you committing to that? Like, why are you holding someone else hostage, or why are you, allowing yourself to be held hostage? If
Yeah,
because that can set someone free. And that isn't to say we shouldn't work on our relationships. Like,
of
long-term
course not.
relationships really take whoop, that's my alarm, sorry. They really do take work, but they it can be fun. It can be light. We can choose to be we can re-choose our relationships again, even after they've seemed like they fall apart. We can really provide choices, access, and power.
So you,
and for every area of our life.
yeah, and you said something too about really choosing for your own happiness and for your own well-being and for your own goodness. This doesn't just pertain to relationships, by the way, guys. You know,
Right.
think about how many jobs you've taken that you thought it was going to be the best job ever, and you were there at the end of day one, and you're like, this fucking sucks, you
Yeah.
know? And then sometimes we buy the illusion or the point of view that we have to stay in
That we
it,
have to stay.
right? But you don't have to stay. You don't have to stay in a job that makes you unhappy. You don't have to stay in a marriage or a relationship that is not fulfilling to you. You don't have to stay. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. It's about you recognizing that you've got to put yourself first. You've got to, as we say all the time, you've got to put your oxygen mask on first. How are you going to make a job work when you can't breathe? How are you going to make a relationship work if you're not happy? How is that even possible? And that's
And
the
maybe it's
indecision
just you
point.
choosing you. Like it's,
Mhm.
yeah. And I don't want to tell everyone to go break up with your partners if you're not happy.
No,
Like
not at all.
you may need to choose yourself and go find what brings you joy
Yeah,
so that you can show up to your relationship
that's right.
whole and complete, not
That's
looking
right.
for the other person to fill you. And that was one of the hardest
Yeah.
lessons it took me to learn probably till a couple of years ago.
Really.
I've been in long-term relationships, monogamous relationships since the dawn of time. And I always was trying to source my happiness from other people. And it just
Which
didn't
never
work.
works. It never works.
No, I took so many hostages and it was like depleting for me. It was
Mm-hmm.
really, and it became something I was almost like, I don't want to say addicted to, but there was like entranced by that drama, by the highs and the lows and and when I finally realized that I had a choice, like even to be in that behavior,
Mm-hmm.
it was like the heavens opened up and the angels sang. I saw the possibility. But the frustrating thing was it didn't just shift overnight. I had to keep choosing it. It was like
Yeah.
a muscle that, we go to the gym and get strong, but how often do we practice self-care and choosing ourselves? And that can
Yes.
be really unfamiliar and uncomfortable, especially for the people pleasers, the saviors, the parents.
And sometimes the greatest choice you can make is just to let go of what you
Mm,
perceive that things have to be, right? And
mm,
that we get also so fixated and focused on having something go our way that we will, for lack of a better term, beat a dead horse until it actually happens. But the truth is also, what if your choice and your decision here was simply to walk away, to allow the quote unquote dead horse to resurrect itself, to choose whatever it's going to choose to. So, in our power of choice, we've got to recognize the choice of other people too. And we've got to recognize that they also have choice and we can't control their choices, right? So, how can we be aligned with our choices and feel so confident and so good about saying, hey, you know what? Your choice is not working for me. I can't change your choice, but you know what? I'm going to choose for me.
mm,
You know, I want to acknowledge also my cousin here, my cousin who, like, my great cousin from, like, I've known forever is here, Stacy. I just want to say hi, Stacy. So great to see you here. And Stacy and I have lived many parallel lives within this lifetime. I think, like, my grandmother and her grandmother were sisters, and we have learned a lot from each other through our grandmothers.
mm.
And so I want to thank you for being here. Thank you, Stacy, and also Jason. Of course, absolutely.
Yes, it's good to see you, Jason.
Exactly. You know, how does it get even better?
Daniel, where have you, has choice or indecision ever been challenging for you in your life?
Yeah, because of the perfectionist aspect.
Mm,
For me, it was the perfectionist aspect. Like, I really struggled with making a choice because I wanted it to be, like you said, the right choice. I wanted it to be what I perceived the right choice was. And so, I held on in situations for far too long that I kept expecting a different reality, right? Like what Einstein
mm,
says, right? You do the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result. That's true insanity. Well, I was really insane because I went through so many of those phases of my life where I thought, wow, like, for example, moving to New York, like, that was like such a huge choice of mine. You know, I was young, I had opportunity, I was doing these cool things, and I got there, and it wasn't exactly how I imagined it to be. It wasn't exactly career wise what I had always projected that it was going to be like. You know, I just thought I would show up on Broadway one day and then have a job, and then I'd be on Broadway for the rest of my life, you know? And that wasn't necessarily the way it was, but I'll be damned if I didn't go to every open call and everything, and work myself to a bone, and try to prove it to myself that was exactly the way it was going to be, when there are so many other great, amazing opportunities for me. And I remember I was also one of those people I was never going to do TV. I was never going to do TV or film. I was only going to do stage, right? And I remember the moment that I had agreed to do, I had been invited to a film audition. And I went and I got the part, and it was like, oh my God, wow. Now I can make so much more money, work so much little less time, and have a lot of fun. So it's like those moments when you think that things have to be your way. Those are the moments that I think I stayed in situations far too long because I was too afraid to make a choice to see that they weren't exactly how I wanted them to be. What about
Yeah.
you? How's it showing up for you?
I mean, well, that I just thought of all the relationships I stayed in that weren't really working, and I just
Yeah.
tried and tried and tried and tried to make them work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big one for me, and I think there's a lot of places where I started to lie to myself, and even almost like lying by omission to other people in order to try to show up a lot of places because I couldn't choose. I didn't feel
Right.
like I could choose powerfully. And I even remember since a child, I'm having memories of choosing between two pairs of shoes and like really struggling with that.
Wow.
If my mom could only buy me one new pair, trying to get like the right one, I had a hard time with that as a kid, even looking back. God, I wonder what that must have been like, or where that came from, like who that belonged to.
Did you have regret that you didn't buy the other one? Like, was it like you would buy one and then you'd get home and be like, wow, I wish I would have bought the other one?
Yeah, I remember that would happen a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's a big like fear of missing out.
Don't
So
you think some of that too comes from like programming too? Like, think about it. Our parents were
yeah,
like, you can only have one. You can only have one. You can only have one. Now I'm like, I want
yeah,
both pairs of shoes. I'm getting both pairs of shoes. My choice is to get both pairs of shoes.
yes. Yeah, and Jason said something like being the person type of person that doesn't want to make people mad. I mean, that was a big one, people
Yeah.
pleasing for sure. So I was just running around trying to do all this extra work to not piss people off, and I
Yeah.
just ended up letting everyone down and really myself down because I never took the time to figure out what I really wanted. And when you stop people pleasing, sometimes people stop being pleased.
That's right. And you have to be okay with their choice,
But also
right?
in those moments, you give people a gift.
Yeah.
So pleasing people isn't always what life is about, right? It's about being of service and
That's correct.
bringing love to everything. But even love isn't always pleasant. And so even drawing healthy boundaries for yourself may not always feel good for someone else, but it may be the greatest gift you give them because you're
Right.
teaching them how to honor you, and you're also giving them an example of what it looks like for someone to honor themselves.
Yeah, I love that too. Also, you can also acknowledge people. One of the things that I've seen in my practice is people, we really, really beat ourselves up for making let's call it a wrong choice. We label it a wrong choice. And I mean, I've seen people like laden in regret for choices that they didn't make or choices that they did make. But again, that is also choosing to have regret. Okay, believe it or not, regret is a choice. So you can either choose to have regret for the choices that you did or didn't make, or you can make another choice that might yield a different result. So you could choose that you're going to do whatever it takes right now for you to recognize that your health, happiness, well-being is paramount here, right? And that nothing should stop in that way. And if there's any choice that you can do to undo the regret so that you can forgive yourself, recognizing to forgive yourself is also a choice. And ask, what are you holding on to by not forgiving yourself? That if you did forgive yourself would empower you to make a different choice. I think it's just recognizing also really truly, Ben, like we always have a choice. Even even indecision is a choice. Right?
Yeah. I think that's what I was choosing so that I didn't have to choose. It was like, why didn't I just choose to stay home? It was, and at the time I really didn't know what the right thing to do was. I'm really thinking about when I first got sober, and I was like trying to figure out like always the right place to be. And I don't think I ever felt comfortable anywhere. But once I started practicing sitting and meditating with myself,
Yeah.
oh my God, my life started to change.
Totally.
I actually sat and thought and listened, to someone that wasn't other people. But when you're trying to get better and you're in a new territory or a new environment and you're like nervous and you're like, kind of doing the paddling in shallow water, it can be, sometimes it's about that, like just letting go. And you find you put your feet down and you're like, oh, I'm in shallow water. I can just stand up.
This is great. This is awesome.
Or I can ask for help. I could just share this with someone else.
You reminded me of something. Can I share with you? Wow,
Please.
this really, really just hit me. I remember like back in those days when I first moved to New York, and I wanted to be something. Like I wanted to be a New Yorker so bad. Right. And I wanted to be cool, and I wanted to know things, and I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do that. And I would lie all the time. Like people would be like, oh my God, have you been to Bowery Bar? And I'm like, oh my God, I love that place. Right. And I remember I also used to do this thing where people would say, where do you want to go eat? And I would go, oh, wherever you would like to go. And they're like, no, wherever you want to go. And I go, no. Honestly, I totally trust your judgment, your opinion. I want to, it's great. But you know what I recognize? I recognize the reason that I didn't choose was because I didn't want to choose something that they were going to then say, well, this is horrible. So therefore, I would rather them choose so that I could be the one who could withhold my own judgment, but still say, yeah, we should have gone to where I should have gone, where I would have recommended, because where I would have recommended is so much better than this. Right?
Very interesting.
I know, right? I'm like, okay, so where do we choose? Where do we not choose in order for us to not be seen as wrong?
Just remembering our band playing this music festival, and everyone like, which way are we gonna go? Are we gonna go this way? And that, and like, oh, let's go. And I was just like, this is driving me crazy. We've been standing here for 20 minutes. I'm going there. And if you guys want to join me, you can. And they're like, well, what about? And I'm like, well, then let's just pick a time. We don't have watches. You'll figure it out. You can talk to someone, but I finally chose, and I felt so free. It was like, oh my God, I've been choosing to be part of this indecisive group and thinking I have to be with the group and make the decisions with them. But they didn't know what they wanted, and I did.
Of course.
And I, for a second, I was like, oh my God, I'm choosing this insanity. I just choose to go do what I want. And it was like, holy, wow, that was easy. So where in our lives are we not just giving ourselves the opportunity to just pivot and be like, oh, I don't have to be part of this. I can just let go and return to sender, right?
That's right. Exactly.
Who does this belong to?
Who does this belong to? This is not mine. And what if your decisions were the decisions that were going to change the world? Would you be willing today to commit to choose more? To choose more of you, to choose more, to choose more, without a point of view about something being right or wrong. Just choose.
Oh, yeah. In that moment, I heard someone yelling my name, and I ended up following it. They weren't calling me, but I literally ran into my favorite band, my favorite people who I'd been trying to meet up with the whole week, and just walked into them. And it was like, and then I got to spend time with them. So it was, cool. What happens when we allow ourselves to choose greater?
Exactly. And that's a great note to end on, Mr. Curtis. I am
Accurate.
choosing to recognize that this was freaking awesome today, and I feel so inspired and empowered by this conversation and by all of
Me
you and
too.
everybody's energy. And what can we choose today to be greater than we ever imagined before?
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
So we'll see you
Thank
all
you,
same
Ben.
time, same place next week. Yes, thank you. Last week we were on a Thursday schedule. You know, we just chose it.
That's
Thank you
right.
all so
It's
much
okay.
for being part of this. You are so much, you're a huge, huge benefit and value, and we do this for you and with you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Send us a message. Let us know what resonates and share this with someone who could use it today. And if you
Yes,
haven't
please.
subscribed to our podcast, please, please, please do that so that you don't miss any of the golden tools we'll be sharing with you in the near future.
And we have a very exciting thing we're going to be announcing very soon, too. So
We really
stay
do.
tuned.
All
Ben, I
right. Have
love
a
you.
beautiful
Thank
day.
you
Love
so
you too,
much.
Daniel. It's a
Bye,
pleasure.
guys.
Bye.